In this passage, Cephas, who's been referred to a few times as Peter, it's just another name for Peter. And here you see how Paul had to publicly correct Peter. And I love the fact that Peter, even though he's the rock on whom Jesus is going to build the church, still makes some huge mistakes that obviously God had to, through Paul, intervene and correct him. And here the mistake is, again, being hypocritical, arguing that the Gentiles need to follow Jewish customs in order to be saved, and being intimidated by some of the powerful Jewish, it seems, sect of the church that would have thought the same thing. Peter just got intimidated by them, and Paul has to stand his ground publicly and say that is not the case. You are saved not by being circumcised, not by following Jewish law, but simply by faith in Jesus. And that is the thing that he keeps hammering home. And for us, the gospel usually feels like it should be more complicated. It feels to me like it should be harder work, but this is the message. This is the message of Christianity. Jesus came into the world, he died, and in dying he took away all of my sin, all of my shame, and all of yours as well. And if I believe in him and I trust in him, I suddenly find myself with access to God. I find myself open to being filled with the Holy Spirit. I find myself having crossed from death to life simply by that decision to trust Jesus. And it just seems like there's no way it can be that simple, but it is. And for the Galatians, what happened is over time, that's where they started from, that simple act of faith. And over time, they began to convince themselves, it can't be this simple. We must have to do something. And so Paul comes at them really strongly and says, you foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? What the heck are you thinking? Having started with the Spirit, you're going to end with the flesh? And he refers to Abraham. And in a sense, this is William Barclay, a commentator writing on this, says, in a sense, every idea has to be embodied in a person for us to really get it. Every great word almost but must become flesh. And Paul uses Abraham as an example here. He holds Abraham up, the father of the Jewish people, and he says, what was the thing that marked Abraham out? Was it that he had followed a law or anything like that? No, it was simply that he believed God. And the Jews think Abraham's descendants are those who are physically descended from his son. But actually, Paul says, the true descendants of Abraham are the ones who, just like Abraham did, took a step of faith to choose to trust God for their righteousness. Today, do not allow yourself to begin to think your righteousness has anything to do with how you behave and what you do. It doesn't. Our behavior obviously is to reflect Jesus, but ultimately, my basis for salvation is that I trust him. And that's the same for you.